to be here. It was I was thinking about the miracles. I had planned this trip, and I thought, after, it was coming, we were getting ready and I thought, I bet there's a New Thought church on the island. We're going to be there 2 Sundays. I should look it up. And I sent an email to Pasha, and it turned out that I guess they had someone booked for this week, but they had canceled, and she just didn't happen to reschedule, and then it was a perfect fit. So it's just really fun. I love when we listen, So I wanted to start a little bit with my spiritual journey, and we'll move into other things. But I found New Thought when I was 19 in North Carolina. I was in school, and I went to a Unity church there, but I also did this workshop, and in the workshop we came up with a life's purpose, our soul's purpose, a mission statement for our lives. And mine was to inspire the love of God in people. And it really has been one of those things along the way that I have, in whatever form I'm living my life, that's my destiny, that's my purpose. It's changed to inspire the love of life in people, or the love, depending on how you feel about that word. But I think that we all begin our lives knowing that we can be great. We have great things in store for us. And sometimes along the way, we lose sight of those dreams, or we decide that we aren't capable of making those happen, and we kind of leave them behind, or that we have to make enough money to support our family, and so we believe that we can't do both. And we leave behind those things that are kind of calling us. And I also think at a certain age, we get to this place where we don't think that we can have a new dream, that we can have something that brings us such great life. I already lived my life. I had my career. I had my children. But if you're breathing, there's more for you. You have more to give back to the world. I think it's great because I have all these Ernest Holmes quotes, and often I have to explain who that is, so that it's kind of neat that he's like, I don't have to explain that one. But this is my absolute favorite book of all times, This Thing Called You, and it is basically an instruction manual for human beings in this journey. I do have a class that I do with this. It's great. But he says in that book, you, like all others, are seeking the joy of living. You wish to be needed, to be loved, to be included in the great drama of life. This urge is in every individual. It's in everything. You think about that grass growing through the little ferns in the lava that we've seen. This urge of life is in everything. And in the entire history of the planet, there has never been anyone exactly like you, with your interests, your skills, and your history. That there hasn't been anyone like you. And all of your ancestors, all of their activity, all of the experiences that lead you up to this moment right now has never happened, has never been. And so, just to take a moment and acknowledge where we are within this divine now. That whatever our history, whatever has happened in the past, we have the opportunity to move forward in a completely new way. So my business name is Soulprint Journeys, and I wanted to explain a little bit about that. So your Soulprint is that unique makeup. It's your unique constellation of talents, of experiences, and of interests, and how all of that comes together to make who you are. So some of those experiences are not just the ones that are joyful and supportive, but the ones that can be devastating, can be bruise you, but they change you. They change your, I think of alchemy, that your actions in life, your experience in life, there's an alchemy in your soul that changes who you are as moving forward from that. And part of my journey, I was a Waldorf teacher, and spatial dynamics is the movement teacher part of Waldorf education. And so I was a Waldorf movement teacher, PE teacher, for about 15 years while my children were growing up. And then I moved into class teaching, and that's really what I wanted to do. In Waldorf education, you start with the first grade, and you stay with the same class all the way through 8th grade. And there's a lot of creativity. I really felt like I could use the divine connection, and it was essential for me to have a meditative practice as a Waldorf teacher. It's part of the job. So I'm getting these divine downloads of how to bring this information to my class. And there's this beautiful weaving that happens when you have a class from 1st to 8th, in that you seed something in 1st grade, and then you pick up that thread in 3rd grade, and then you pick it up again in 5th grade, and it just kind of moves the class through. So I had taught at a school that was very small and had a lot of changing of students. And in the 2 years that I taught, at the end of those 2 years, I only had one student that I had started with. And I really wanted to be able to do that weaving. So I left that school and I joined a new school. I had a 1st grade. It seemed like my dream job. I had a nice sized class, beautiful facility, and I had kind of a perfectionistic mentality on this. Like I wanted to be the perfect Waldorf teacher. Well, anything that you do that's artistic can't be perfect. That's part of it. It's messy and it's alive and it's moving. And so I would spend every vacation, every weekend, every evening, I would come home and I would just work and work and work, planning and designing, getting those divine downloads of writing poetry or music for my class, for their lessons, doing different movement activities that they could learn their math with. And I knew that I brought an amazing, hugely balanced curriculum, but I also had terrible lack of confidence. I was constantly acting. I would get this beautiful download, write this poem, and then I would go to another teacher and say, do you think this works? Is this something I can bring? Or how would you do this? And I was never confident. I was always questioning what I was bringing. And again, with creativity aspects of things, every teacher that I talked to, of course, had a totally different opinion, and some of them didn't match. And so I was constantly, I had this deep anxiety. I got very sick. I never had the feeling that I was doing a good job. I always doubted myself. I always felt like, just not bringing it the way that I want to bring it. And I went into a meeting on the day before Valentine's Day, and I thought it was a renewal. So every February, you meet with the core people and you renew your contract for the next year. So I go into this meeting thinking that's what I'm doing, and I'm fired on the spot. What? And exactly. I was like, what? I was just floored and so hurt that I had brought, everything I could to this. And I, called my husband in tears. It's the day before Valentine's Day. I had presents for the kids. It was after school. I didn't get to say goodbye to my class. I just left. I had to clear out my room. And again, with Waldorf education, I think mostly with any education, the whole room was mine. The library, the little nature table with all the little felt animals, the decorations on the walls. And so we boxed up everything. And there was a teacher desk, the student's desk, a rug, and a trash can. And that was what I left the class to come to the next morning. And I kind of felt like that, this empty hole of a person, that what could I have done that was so wrong that I'm fired on the spot. They didn't even let me finish the year out or even to spring break. And what school would ever hire a teacher that was fired in February, what could, the thinking of what they're thinking of how could that, what did she do that was so bad that required this action? And so, I kind of fell into a funk. I fell into this sort of soul searching. And I hired a life coach, a spiritual life coach who kind of helped me sort of look at my own internal calling. What was my goal in this? What am I supposed to be doing? What is the lesson in this very difficult experience? And I'm going to back up on my notes because I tend to just talk and then have to come back and go, what was I supposed to be saying? I wanted to quote Rumi, the Persian poet. He sort of describes what we're doing here on this planet. And he says, "It's as if a king has sent you into a far and distant land with one thing to accomplish. You can accomplish 1,000 other things, but if you fail to accomplish the one thing for which you have been sent, in the end, it will be as if you've accomplished nothing." So, we've been sent here by the king, the GOD, the grand overall designer, to this far and distant land, human birth on the earth. And we're here with, one special thing to do. And we can do 1,000 other things. We can do these great dramatic things, make a lot of money, be seen by society as amazing people. But if we're not following, what we're really meant to be doing here, it's as if we've done nothing. And there's a feeling of being unfulfilled when we're not achieving that. And I don't believe that this thing that we're here sent to do is a thing, like writing the book or getting the degree. What I think it is really that discovery of who we are meant to be, and the moving forward with the steps that we see, whatever it is the next opening happens for us. That's how we step into what it is we're meant to be doing. And I think that we all have these different aspects of ourselves that we're bringing, this different soul print. And so what my dream is not going to be what your dream is. I talked about our dream home that we moved into. We moved into this handcrafted, designed, the architect was a fine arts major, and he was also the builder, but he was building it as a love letter to his parents. And so every trim in every window, all of the wood is as smooth as stone. It's thought out so beautifully. And it is totally our dream home, way beyond what we possibly imagined we could ever be living in. But it's not it's not everyone's dream. I have a friend who is terrified of snakes and doesn't really like the woods and, wants to live in something completely different. We live in a rainforest, basically. It's not for everyone. So our dream, whatever it is that's calling us, is going to be unique for us. And it's going to use those experiences to bring us into what it is we're meant to do. And I think that as a global society, it's super easy for us to get discouraged about the gifts that we have to bring. I work with a lot of other coaches, and there's the imposter syndrome going on for them. They're like, well, why would they want to hire me when they could go to Tony Robbins or some big famous person to get coaching? And the thing is that their clients are going to be drawn to their personality, their soul print. Their experiences brings a wisdom or an empathy that Tony Robbins wouldn't bring them. So whatever it is that's calling you to be manifesting in the world can only be brought by you. And it can only be brought by the you that is right now, not the you that was before. That sometimes I think that we, get caught up in the, oh, I've heard this, I know this sort of mind thing. We can have a 40-year meditative practice, but if for some reason we're off center, we're not in that space, we're not going to be hearing that voice. So if we're out of practice, it's not right now. And the key is to kind of see what you're experiencing right now. In your life right this moment, if you know these principles, are they in action? Are you experiencing the love that you want to be experiencing? Are you experiencing the abundance that you want? The vitality and health that you're wanting? So, these principles that we talked about, the superhero powers that we have, that Ernest Holmes talks about, can move through us at every moment. And so if we're not experiencing to the level that we want to be experiencing, he talks about putting the stove in the living room in this book, that God doesn't care if you put the stove in the living room, right? That you have every right to put the stove in the living room if that's what you want. We've been given free will. So we have this Soulprint. I believe that we're, the divine has woven this web of your experiences and your talents to bring something beautiful to the world. But we have free will to choose whether we bring that forward in the world, whether we take that risk and take that step towards that dream. As I said, I was found New Thought very early on. I went into the ministry. I went to ministry school. I was 21 when I started in my ministry training, which was a 3-year training. And everyone else was 20 years or more older than I was. And they started comparing. The school was at a very large ministry. It was associated with a very large church. And the minister compared me. I was doing a Wednesday service, and she compared me to a young version of herself. And then from then on, everyone was like, ooh, I want to see what she, And it was this sort of, what is she going to be? This expectation. And I freaked out. I did have a church for 4 years, and then we had children, and I really wanted to be a mom. But that pressure really, I had a deeper fear that I didn't even, it wasn't acknowledged that was kind of sabotaging myself. But, that's my path. That was the path that I needed to take to, and now I've come back around, and I'll get to that towards a little bit later. But the paths that we take lead us. So when I got laid off from the job, not laid off, I got fired from teaching, it was that divine 2x4. God gives you a little feather, brush on the cheek to guide you in a certain direction, and maybe it's a tap, and then it's kind of a push, and then the divine 2x4 comes out, and you get fired blindsided. But what it was, looking back on it, I would still be in this class teaching the students, and I love the students, that's not the issue, but who I was in it, I didn't like. It wasn't my fulfillment in life. I always, like I said, felt less than, like I was never living up to what I could be. And so, the funny thing in the story is that the next year, Jim, the day before Valentine's Day, came home and he'd been laid off. Like, I got fired, but he was laid off. And it was like, yeah, oh no, what are we gonna do? And our son was graduating, our youngest was graduating, went off to college the next year. And because of this experience, if he had been working, we'd be like, okay, he's working, I'll go find some other job I can do here in Portland where we were. But because he got laid off, it opened our eyes. We were able to kind of step aside and go, what do we really want? And I think it's very rare for us to step aside from our daily life. We're so busy with what's going on to take that overview and say, is this the life that I want to be creating? Is this the path that I want to be doing, or am I just doing it by default? We can do, our lives by design, creating a dream that we want, really consciously saying, this is where I feel alive, or we can do it by default, where we just kind of, do what comes to us and do the job because that's what we're supposed to be doing. So we opened our eyes, and we thought, we'd always wanted to travel in a trailer, and we thought it was going to be when we retired. And Jim found a job that he could do, it was a contract job that he could do on the road. So we gave away most of our things. We put the rest in storage. We bought a big teardrop trailer and a truck, and we dropped our youngest off at college, and then we went up into Canada and toured the United States for a year. And we lived on, off-grid on Forest Service land or grassland. And it was great for us because we had spent, all those years as parents, and the children was the sort of the focus of things. And living in 125 square feet, you get to, reconnect with the person you're living with. So it's really good for our marriage and our connection, and it was so enlivening. And it gave us a chance to see, like, where do we want to be living? And we then came back to Portland. Of course, then COVID actually hit. It was right when that happened. So we came back and we began the design. And during that year, while we were living on the road, my mentor, the woman who ordained me, now has a coaching program. And so I signed up for her coaching program and became a spiritual life coach, which, the teaching was lovely. I was excited. It was interesting. But this feels like what I'm meant to be doing. My sense of being alive, my sense of waking in the morning early, just joyful of what I get to do during the day. So I signed up for that, and then we also, during that we went to a kind of a weekend retreat with her, which is similar to what I'm doing this afternoon. But we envisioned, the two of us envisioned our dream home. We knew we wanted to live in Portland. We were looking for 3 to 5 acres outside of Portland, and about 2,200 or 2,000 square feet is kind of what a smaller home for us, and some acreage that we could have in woods. And that dream started unfolding. So the thing is, where you put your energy is where we get to experience. Wallace Wattles, this book is another one of my favorites, The Science of Getting Rich. And, I like to actually change that because I think there's a lot of people who have a lot of connotations with money. But basically, it's the science of manifestation and abundance in your life. And if it's money that you want, then you can manifest money. But it's basically using these principles that Ernest Holmes talks about, the New Thought principles, and bringing them into your life in a way that is doable. So he says in that you don't have to, let me find it here. You don't have to focus on something that you want. So when we begin to look at that dream that's calling us, the statement that I love to ask people is, what would you love? What would make you come alive? And when we start to follow that, when the interest is there, the things that you have to do to make that happen are not so difficult. And I want to do a little exercise with you. So what I want you to do is I want you to hold your arm out. And just hold it there. And as I said, I was trained in spatial dynamics. And spatial dynamics believes in the fluid continuity of a human being body, space, and awareness. So one of the things that we learned about was using our will, force, our muscles to make something happen. And the difference when you actually have a vision of where you want to end up, the target that you're aiming for, your body can move with ease and grace to where you want to go. So in that, right now what we're doing is we're using our will to hold our arm up. We're using our muscle strength, and we can feel all that gravity kind of pushing down on us, and we are having to hold our arm up, and it's tiring, and I invite you to put it down. So now what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes and imagine a tiny light at the center of your heart. And this light is small, but it's very bright. It's like those new LEDs that are reminding, here we are, our LED heart, our heart light. This is you. This is your soul, your energy, the individual that is in this skin at this moment. You're carrying your soul print. So this light is small, but it's bright. And now I would like you to imagine surrounding you in the whole sphere, this light, but it's calling you from the distant edges of the universe. All around you. And this energy is calling you to be greater. It's stretching that little light. It's growing that little light, pulling it, opening it, expanding it. Really feel that pull to be more, for that light in your center to grow. And now, even with your eyes closed, I would like you to put your arm out again, that same arm, holding it up. But this time, I want you to feel it pulled by the edges of the universe. Feel that pull calling you. It's holding you up. You can feel support underneath your arm. The universe is pulling you forward, holding you up. Go ahead, we can come back to the room. Open your eyes. You can put your arm down. So, when we are called by a vision, there is support, there is energy. And that aspect, when we use the will force to make things happen, or whether we use this call of being drawn to something, we can use that in every aspect of our life. So we can make something happen. I feel like that's kind of what I was doing with Waldorf Education. I was working as hard as I could to make this, I'm going to be this best. Or we can be called by who we are here to be and the vision that we have for our lives. I'm way off my notes, so it's going to take me a minute to put myself. I like looking at you instead of my notes, so I just let it happen. Oh, I'm going into this, which I love. So Ernest Holmes has another quote that I love that's in this thing called You. He says, "For while unity requires conformity to principles, unity never means uniformity." I think we get confused about that. I think, I have to be like everyone else. Every blade of grass, every crystal, every drop of water, like every individual, is a little different from any other one of its species. Humanity is made up of innumerable individuals, no two alike. You belong to the universe in which you live. You are one with the creative genius back of this vast array of ceaseless motion. So the energy of the universe is creating you as this unique individual. This original flow of life, you are as much a part of it as the sun, the earth, and the air. There is something in you telling you this, like a voice echoing from some mountaintop of inward vision, like a light whose origin no man has seen, like an impulse welling up from an invisible source. Your soul belongs to the universe. Your mind is an outlet through which the creative intelligence of the universe seeks fulfillment. This is your starting point for investigating the meaning of those impulses, longings, and desires which accompany you through life. You may accept that the source from which these come is real. You may accept that the universe is filled with the divine and infinite presence, perhaps the infinite of yourself. Oops. I think a page blew over, because not the infinite of your limited self, but the infinite of the divine self. There must be a pattern of yourself in this invisible, and that is your soul print, that pattern that's in this invisible. And again, we are here with a pattern, but we have free will. We can live by default if we choose, or we can live by design. Michael Beckwith is a minister in California who I really love. He's a New Thought minister, and he says to change in life, we're often have to be pushed by pain until we're pulled by a vision. So these two energies of the problem, being pushed by the pain, for me, it was being fired from that job, that pain, it moved me into a different place, or we're pulled by a vision. So what is it that you want to be doing? What would you love to be doing? And I want to bring into this, I'm not sure the timing. Are we, I was going to use my phone, and then we didn't start on a particular, are we good to
5 minutes?
go? 5 minutes, okay. Okay, great, thank you. I had a friend, my first mastermind partner. I don't know if you've heard of masterminding, but you work with someone to kind of use those divine principles to move you forward. My first mastermind partner was in her 80s, and her, this was not when we first started working together, but later her husband died. And she, spent a few years in grief. It was, they were very close. It was a really sweet relationship. And after he died, she kind of felt like my life is done. I don't have any purpose. I don't have any plan. And after a few years, she thought, okay, she's in New Thought. She's like, okay, I'm still breathing. There must be something for me to be doing. And she kind of explored, what is it that she would love to be doing? And she had always wanted to paint china. You know how the thin, paper thin china that's hand painted, that's just beautiful? And she started painting china. And one of the things was asked of her, oh, I'd like to paint china. So what's the first step that you could take if that's something that you want to be doing? And so she found a class, and she started taking a class, and it just brought her this vibrancy, this life, this purpose. She painted with different groups of people. She gave them as presents to family members. And it wasn't a career. It wasn't something that she, wasn't trying to really make money, but it gave her life. It gave her a sense of giving back to the world. And she proceeded for her 90th birthday, she published her first book. Yeah. So what I want to say is that if you're breathing, you're not done. There is something calling you. And no matter what has led you to this moment, all of the path doesn't matter. It's just what is ahead of us, looking forward. I think I love this idea of the spiritual DNA. That there's something, this Soulprint that we have is imprinted in our spiritual DNA. And we can, with just like physical DNA, we can not manifest it. Sometimes we have things in our DNA that aren't represented. So I can have brown eyes, and I have a blue eye in there, and I have a brown eye in there. My father had blue eyes, and so in me there is a blue eye gene. It's not manifest. So in our spiritual DNA, you could have all of these amazing things possible for you. And you get to choose whether you activate those, whether you make them manifest. So I think too, the thing is, as we take steps towards that dream, towards that goal, towards that calling, as we take those steps towards it, new steps happen, new dreams open up. As we went on our trailer ride, then I became a life coach. Then we had the dream of the house. We bought the house this last year. 2 years, almost to the day of when we started the dream, we purchased our dream home. And this last couple months ago, we sort of, maybe it wasn't just a month ago, it was like 2 years after we started this, we began a new dream for our lives. The next step, which is to create a retreat center on this. We want to be stewards of this property. We feel like we want people to be and experience the beauty of it. And so that's our new goal that's happening, and we have our first retreat scheduled for July. We have 20 people coming to enjoy our property, and I feel like every time we take that step, a new thing is opened up. So I think the big thing is to ask yourself, what would I love? What would give me life? What would make me excited to wake up in the morning? And to not focus on the circumstances, the physical, what's happening in the now, right now, because you're not going to necessarily see results in the physical, but it will be manifest in the spiritual world. Whatever we're really focusing on, spending that energy, believing that is true, using these divine principles, it's already created in the spiritual world, and we just need to take the steps to manifest it in the physical world.
Blessings.